Welcome to Americana Archives. Today we have part 4 of the story with the headline, Underground Railroad Reminiscences. This article was written by H.E. Nottingham. It says, the fugitives were put in jail, and Mr. Pyatt was notified that the culprits were secure. This took place on Tuesday, and Saturday rolled around and they were still in prison. In the meantime, abolitionists at Bellefontaine learned about the prisoners. They went to West Liberty, got out a writ of habeas corpus, and had the slaves brought to Bellefontaine for trial. Judge Pyatt endeavored to get Bill Lawrence, Mr. West, later known as the blind lawyer, and others to take the case, but none could be obtained. He had to take the matter in charge himself. Word was sent to his brother to come as soon as possible. The trial proceeded, and the judge took all the time that he could, but the decision was given just 1 hour before the master with the United States Marshal arrived. It was decided that the arrests were illegal because the fugitive law of 1850 required the papers for arrest to have on them the county stamp from which they had fled. Rigs were awaiting the fugitives, and they were immediately carried to the Quaker settlement at Zanesville. When Don Pyatt and the marshal arrived, they rushed to the liveries for the fastest horses they had. They were informed that all the horses were engaged. The pursuers were compelled to return to West Liberty for Judge Pyatt's rig before they could continue the chase. After reaching the settlement, they searched for many days without obtaining any clue at all. The fugitives were kept there for several weeks, then taken to a little station north of Bellefontaine and shipped in dry goods boxes to Canada. Mrs. S.A. Cullers of Granville recalls seeing fugitives at her grandfather's, Little David Thomas, in the Welsh Hills. She used to see the slaves taken out for a little fresh air and sunshine. Similar scenes were witnessed by Mrs. Anna Barrett and her sister Mrs. Spellman at the home of Gershon Griffith. They recalled also how their grandmother, Mrs. Joseph Weeks, used to cook things on the sly and send them up to Mr. Griffiths for the slaves. Mr. Weeks did not approve of the movement. He was a strong colonizationist. Mrs. Barrett said that the way she first came to see slaves at Mr. Griffith's was by coming upon her uncle suddenly on a side hill as she was going across the fields to his place. When he saw her, he was startled, and a big black man stretched full length on the ground, rose up quickly, and then sank back when he saw that it was only a little child. There were several places in that neighborhood where fugitives were welcome. Joseph Little, who lived on the J.S. Jones farm, as referred to before. Then Mr. Theophilus Little's place just east of that, again on the road which goes north past the J.S. Jones. His daughter, Miss Elizabeth Walter Pritchard, of Granville, gave several interesting incidents. At one time, 2 brothers came there on their way to freedom. They had gained such confidence in themselves from their journey thus far that they did not want Mr. Griffith to accompany them to the next station. They said, "We'd keep the right tracks all right, 'cause we'd just watch the big star," as they pointed to the North Star. 3 days after their arrival, however, Mr. Griffith took them on foot to the next place north. Another time, a splendid young fellow stopped at the Griffith station. He had been quite a favorite with his master, and he had had no thoughts of running away until after he was married. After this happy union, a great reverse came his way. His wife was taken from him and sent to the South. After that, he determined that he would submit to slavery no more. So consequently, he seized one of his good opportunities to escape and gained his freedom. Mr. Griffith gave him a lift on his journey, and the black gentleman was so grateful and attached that he gave to Mr. Griffith a fine silver pencil, which Mrs. Pritchard still has. Some of those assisted, after they were safely located, wrote very grateful letters to the Griffiths, and probably to many others, showing their appreciation for assistance given. Sometimes there would come a whole family at a time. At one time, 2 real old people, their sons, his wife, and their 3 children, and a baby girl, 8 months old, all arrived at Griffith's on the same train. They were closely pursued, however, and it was necessary to sidetrack their coach a whole week. The old people were very peevish, and were sure that the children would give them away before they reached the promised land. They came on Saturday evening, and that same night, 2 of Justin Hillier's lads took the old couple to their home and kept them till the next Saturday night, when the party was passed on to the care of others. The caution that had to be exercised in regard to the children of an Underground Railroad station is shown in connection with this last incident. 2 of Mr. Bancroft's daughters were visiting Mr. Griffith's, and they wanted to see the black people. Now there was a little shaver, George Hughes, who was attending the country school, but lived with Mr. Griffith. he, unnoticed by the rest, slipped in and saw them too. The result was that one little lad had a vacation till after the slaves were safely on their journey once more. Captain Joseph Scott was a conductor on the Underground Railroad. He lived at the time in Alexandria. One night he went through the town on horseback with 2 slaves. They had quite a way to go, so they started as early as they dared. There was a revival meeting going on in the village, so they simply went with the procession to the edge of town. Of course, they managed to keep apart from those going to the churches. To be continued. Check back soon for the next installment of this incredible story. This story came from the great state of Ohio, being reported in the Granville Times of January 25th, 1912. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.